All right, let's do it. Good evening, everybody. So I am waiting for a little bit of feedback. I'm going to talk here and kind of say nothing for the first few seconds because I'm waiting for a little bit of feedback on my audio from our friend Katie back at headquarters. In the meantime, hi everybody, I'm JG Pastor Jack. This is Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries, coming at you live tonight, not from our regular studio, as you can see very easily by looking around, but from a beautiful little Airbnb, in Enterprise, Alabama. I just got out of the shower. My hair is still wet. It's not going to look much better when it's dry. But so here's what's going on. We are on the road. That's why we're only on Facebook right now. We're no YouTube live tonight. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's been tape delayed. We're going to upload this show to YouTube immediately after we're done broadcasting. So we're finally getting around to some dyno testing. And Ian's telling me I could be a little bit louder, so let me turn me up a little bit. How's that? Is that better? I'm now getting into the yellow area on my broadcaster here. So we'll get some feedback from that. And now Katie's telling me she's frozen. Isn't it great being on the road, everybody? Let me send her a message. All right, so we're cranking the audio up. We're getting everything live. Hopefully that is a problem on Katie's end back in Florida. But let me reboot the topic in the meantime. Oh, since it sounds like our audio is much better. So we are here in Enterprise, Alabama, finally getting around to doing some dyno testing on our C5 Corvette Z06. The first thing we did was today, we've not touched the motor at all since we bought it from the previous owner. Haven't put an exhaust on it, haven't put intake on it, haven't done anything, haven't tuned it, done absolutely nothing. It's 405 horsepower from the factory. You don't really need to do much except learn to drive the stupid thing. Now it's time to add horsepower. We've kind of figured a few things out. But the first thing we wanted to do was test out some different grades of fuel. So what I'm talking about is what happens when you go to a track day and you see those beautiful fuel pumps over in one corner, those Dyno fuel pumps usually, and they've got the 95 octane, they've got the 100 octane, and they've got the regular 93 that you're buying at the local gas and sip, or they've got the 91 if you're out west and don't have the 93. Does it matter? Does it make any difference at all to your car, or to a Corvette at least, when you're putting those different fuels in at a track day? So what's the difference? So that was the first question we wanted to know. Does it make any difference? And we got some really interesting results tonight. I'm going to warn you in advance. There's somewhat anticlimactic results, but we're going to go through these nonetheless. Okay, let's tune in, see who's here. Yes, my cousin Jeannie is here. Some of our usuals are here. Ian and Dinesh, and sounds like a couple people are having buffering issues. We're just gonna keep rolling, and hopefully everybody's cool, and we will get on with the shoe. Let me bring up a couple of images here and kind of show you. Actually, here, let's start here. I'll tell you what. Now I'm getting messages during this whole thing. Katie is just getting endless pre-roll back in Florida, so okay, so everybody on Facebook's telling me it's pretty good. Let me let Katie know that I think that is on your end. Alright, so she's gonna throw up our links. I'll try and populate our social feed while we're talking here. But let's while we're kind of waiting for everybody else to join and everybody else to figure out what's going on, let me tell you a little bit about the folks that make this show possible. Our friends down here in the lower left-hand corner, talking about our friends from CRC Industries. Of course, you can check them out online, crcindustries.com. Even better, check them out at a retailer near you, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, O'Reilly, Napa, Advanced Auto Parts, any of those places have the CRC stuff. You get a great product, you get brake clean, you get throttle body cleaner, you get carb cleaner, you get any of that stuff, you know it works. You're also giving a little bit back to our industry and to our scene, because they support great shows like this, they support great shows or great events like our $2,000 challenge. So when you're at the store, please be grabbing those bright red or green or gray cans of CRC stuff. Also, our friends at Coney, we're going to have tips from them. Hopefully next week, our friend Lee Grimes, Coney-na.com. Hopefully, I'm even going to have some discount codes for you guys for Coney shocks. Fantastic shock absorbers, fantastic people, great tech, always provided by our friends at Coney. Check them out online, Coney-na.com. And finally, check out our friends from Autobooks, Aerobooks, Autobooks-Aerobooks.com, world's greatest bookstore in Burbank, California. Tens of thousands of books, magazines, DVDs, videos, collectibles from the entire history of transportation. I urge you to make it there in person someday. Check out one of their live events, a Cars and Coffee event, an author signing, any of the great stuff they have going on there. You can't make it out there. I know it's all the way over on the West Coast. Autobooks-Aerobooks.com on the web. Okay, so I'm getting good feedback from the folks on Facebook over there. And yeah, unfortunately, Katie's having trouble back there, so there might not be any links going up, but I will try and get those in after the show. So let's get to the topic at hand. So let's start here. Here are the fuels that we tested. Now this is in addition to I went by the local Sunoco station in Ormond Beach, Florida. We're on Granada Boulevard and I-95. It's where I buy gas quite frequently. I got a jug, filled up a jug out of the pump with 93 octane, filled up a jug out of the pump with 91 octane, and also filled up a jug for me with Pepsi Max, because they have it in the fountain there at that Sunoco. And then, in addition to that, we had the 260 GT, which is 100 octane unleaded, and the Optima, which is a 95 octane unleaded. The 260 GT is also an oxygenated unleaded as well. So the question we wanted to know is, what happened? You see this stuff at the racetrack. If a racetrack has their own fuel pumps, they have these higher octane fuels. They have 95 octane, they have 100 octane. And maybe you're there for a track night in America. Maybe you're there for a time trial, and you're like, oh man, I'm a tenth of a second off this other fella in my class, so I'm going to throw in that great fuel that's $7 a gallon, and I'm going to see what happens just in my otherwise unmodified street car. Does it matter? Well, here is the answer. The answer is kind of. So here's where we start. Let's start here. Let's start with a quick video of us doing a dyno pull on the Vet, because it looks awesome and it also sounds cool. So here you go with that. Oh, I have to do this first. I'm using a different broadcast program than I usually do. Okay, so that is what literally every poll looked and sounded like. So there's your car on a dyno fix for tonight. So you're asking, hey, what was the number? Well, the first number we ran was on 93 octane, which is what I normally go to the pump and buy when I'm getting ready to autocross the Corvette or getting ready to do a time trial or a track day or something. I stop at that Sunoco, I fill up my jugs with a 93 out of the pumps, and here is what the dyno chart looked like for that. Now, this is wheel horsepower on a Mustang dyno, so this dyno is a little bit stingier than a dyno jet normally. So we're looking at peak power 325.2, peak torque 326.0, and a fairly flat torque curve till it falls off there, right about 5,000 RPM. And typical C5Z stock power curve. I was actually texting a little bit with a friend of mine today, comparing, you know, these dyno charts to his, and he was testing on a dyno jet, which was not as stingy as this one, but the curves look really, really similar. So, you know, I think this sort of tells me there's nothing inherently wrong with any of the major mechanical components, even though the things are 100,000 miles, still very strong. Mike wants to know, do we gather specific gravity of the fuels tested? No, we did not. We basically just ran them as delivered. We ordered the 5-gallon jugs of 260 GT and what's the other stuff called? Jugs and Optima. Ordered those right from Sunoco. They will deliver those 5-gallon jugs right to you. It actually, in most places in the U.S., it doesn't require any sort of funky handling. These are the jugs that show up to your door via, I think UPS actually delivered these jugs to us. And so yeah, we didn't take any kind of specific gravity readings. We just basically ran them as they were delivered. So Jack wants to know, what was target AFR on each? So for this test, we actually the target AFR was eventually is going to be, you know, like an ideal stoichiometric, you know, which is what, 14 point something, or but we were just data logging on these. We weren't really until later, and we'll get to what we did, you know, for our final test. We didn't want to do any sort of tuning, anything beyond just switching out the fuels and seeing if there was a difference. So took out the 93, put in some 91, and I even have thrilling video. Hang on, of us draining. Here, oh, here we go. You guys are gonna love this. Oh, look at that! Isn't that thrilling? That is the 93 coming out, and the 91 getting ready to go in. We had this elaborate hose rigged up. But by the way, if you ever want to know how to drain the fuel from a C5 Corvette, all you got to do is pull the fuel pump fuse, and it's the fuel pump relay. It's relay number 35 in the underhood relays, and you jumper those two ports. And when you turn the key back on, the fuel pump will just constantly run. Then all you have to do is pull the fuel line off, like we did here, and run it into a bucket. The bucket is not pictured there, but you get the idea. So that's how we did the fuel drain. So next up was 91. So we went from 93 to 91. Here is the 93 versus 91 chart. Here we go. All right. So as you can see, we actually picked up 4/10 of a horsepower if you're gambling at home, or if you're playing the home game. We lost about a pound of torque. I'm going to call both of those things within the realm of statistical noise. You're talking about 0.28% of a difference in the number, in the actual value there. So I'm going to basically say that there is practically zero difference between the 93 and the 91. And we actually did after each, the only sort of electronic trickery we did. Okay, so our friend Ed Senf is chiming in. If anybody knows about this stuff, good Lord, it certainly isn't us. Ed has a better handle on this. Stoic for 260 is 14.6 pump gas, closer to 14.2 depending on ethanol content. Yeah, and that's all stuff we're going to get into later on when we actually start tuning for this stuff. We literally did no tuning for this stuff just to see how much the onboard computer would compensate, if it would compensate at all, and if there is indeed any gain to be had by running the the good juice the next time you are at the track. So we've established no real appreciable difference between the 93 and the 91. Looking at our fuel our spark advance curves, we never even had any knock sensor intervention throughout any of the runs on 93 or 91. So telling us there's probably a little bit more power to be had there through tuning. We're not there yet. We're still at the does the fuel make a difference point here. So didn't really get into that till the final one, and we'll get to that later in the show. So let us now take a look at the 93 versus the 95. And here we go. Again, you can see that, boy, still very much within the realm of statistical noise. About 0.6 of a horsepower improvement, and about half of a pound of torque loss. But again, really, if you're looking at just the absolute peak torque numbers, really close. Now, one thing you can see on this curve here, and it's zoomed in, but you can see that the lighter blue is the 95 octane, although the torque peak is ultimately, you know, slightly lower, probably, you know, just because of a very momentary pulse. You do consistently have a little bit more torque there. Again, this is highly zoomed, so you could see a difference, but it is running just a little bit higher in that torque curve. Is it enough to make a difference? Without tuning, probably not. I don't know that you would ever. I'm still thinking that you know, less than 1% overall difference is within the realm of statistical noise, or not particularly significant. There are certainly other factors that are going to affect your performance more than that partial horsepower. All right. So next we moved on to the 100, the real fancy stuff. Let's see what we got with the 100. Here we go. Yep. So yeah, your eyes do not deceive you. We actually ran a little bit, lost a little bit of horsepower with the 100. So Nick's asking, how long did we run the car on each fuel? So what we did was we actually would change each fuel. We would run the car through a various, just sort of a various accelerate, decelerate for about 5 or 6 minutes to make sure the entire system had cycled. When we drained each fuel, we drained it till we just got, you know, puffs of air coming out. We didn't want to go too long to let the fuel pump run dry for too long and overheat, but we did wait till there was actually no fuel flowing out of the hose before we put the new fuel in. Then we'd run the car for a few minutes at various speeds to cycle some of that fuel through. We do one pull on the dyno, let it come back down, make sure all of our temperatures were the same as our previous runs. Then do our money pull basically after that. So to be more specific, 4 to 5 minutes of driving, then a dyno pull, then the real pull. And we actually used those pulls to back each other up, and they were always extremely close. So yeah, so we've now seen that basically 93, 91, 95, 100 across the board, basically identical. So next step up was to do a little bit of tuning. And we didn't go super deep into the ECU. We're using some HP Tuner software. Did not go, we basically messed with spark tables a little bit to see if we could coax just a little bit more horsepower out of this completely bone stock setup with the fancier fuel. And here is what we ended up with that. So we actually were able, with the 100 octane and a tune, to coax out a little over 4 horsepower and a little over actually under 3 pounds of torque. But you can see that the curves, it isn't just peaks getting higher. It's actually a fairly consistent across the board gain. So there actually is some real gains to be had there. Are these material gains? Are these gains where you're saying, well, I have no choice but to run 100 octane in my bone stock 100,000 mile street car, or what sort of a man am I if I don't do this? No, the real answer is unless you are developing hard parts out to the ragged edge, chances are or you have a highly pressurized turbocharged car. That's where it can start to make a difference. And we're actually going to, I want to do this test again with a turbo car somewhere down the road, and you know, kind of see what we can learn there. So we actually, after that final 100 octane test, went back to the 93, did a little bit of tuning on that, and we're able to nearly match the numbers of the 100 octane with the 93 octane on the you know a slightly modified tune. So conclusions: if you've got a stock motor, or it should say if you have a stock 2004 Z06 Corvette, not much to be gained with exotic fuels. Now, did what we learned today warrant further exploration and further testing in different configurations with higher compression engines with different cam timing and duration, or with turbocharged engines? Yes, absolutely. But you can't really strap a bunch of different cars down to a dyno in one day. We got a Corvette strapped down to the dyno today. That's what we were working on. So it's going to be another show for another time. But I look forward to seeing everybody back here for that one, because I am very curious what we learn on that one. So that is what we learned today. So so Steve wants to know 91 versus 93. I'll throw up the 91 versus 93 curve on here again for you. They are essentially identical. They are within the realm of statistical norms. We actually, if you want to split hairs, we actually picked up 0.4 of a horsepower going from the 93 to the 91. Lost a pound of peak torque, but they were essentially identical. So Mike wants to know, do we repeat the first fuel after the last one? Yeah, we actually went back to the 93 after the final test. So we tried to do it as scientifically as we could and still get it into a full day, and still you can only. Yes, it's always good to use proper testing methods to back up your first test from your last test. We were doing each test with the same coolant temperatures and same oil temperatures as well. We're trying to match those temperatures within a percent or two as best we could. And we also had the good fortune today to have very consistent weather throughout the day. We had like mid to high 60s, overcast, a little bit of humidity in the air. Didn't really change that much, so we had really consistent conditions throughout the day. Our friend Wayne Presley from Very Cool Parts here in Enterprise helped us out with all the dyno testing. And so we had really good repeatable conditions, and we actually went back and retested our first fuel after our last fuel. And again, you could throw all of these dyno charts in a pile and pick one out at random and not really know which one it was. Doesn't mean that your results wouldn't be different. We actually, through our entire testing, never got into any knock sensor intervention at all. Never saw the knock sensor activate. And if you actually look at the spark tables on the LS6, they're very, very conservative in the higher RPM areas. You know, beyond about 3,800 RPM, very, very conservative on the timing settings. So we actually where we gained power both with the 93 tune and the 100 octane tune was in a little bit more static advance, going from like 23 degrees to 26, 27 degrees up in the 3,800 to redline area. But again, those gains were minor. They were single digit horsepower gains. So there is not a ton of difference. So Mike wants to know any difference in the smell of the exhaust. I can't really speak to the smell of the exhaust because we were Very Cool Parts is a very well ventilated shop, but there is a definite difference in the smell of the fuels. 93 and 91 both have that very familiar gasoline smell that it's exactly what your hand smells like after you fill your mower up for the first time each season and realize that your fuel jug is now cracked. 95 also smells very similar. The 100 octane actually has a little bit more pleasant. It's still an unleaded fuel, so it doesn't have that really awesome race fuel smell to it, but it has more of a sort of sweet, less pungent, more sweet aroma to it than the 91, 93, and 95. It actually smells more like a race gas than it does like a street gas. I didn't spend a lot of time huffing gas today, so I can't make too many more specific comments on that. But yeah, there definitely was a difference in the smell of the fuels themselves. Yeah, and Jared Autobooks is mentioning slower flame front propagation with the higher octane fuels. The 100 is also oxygenated, so that actually changes the burn characteristics a little bit. But yeah, definitely is what allows you to add a little bit more timing in. Although we found that we could add some timing into the 93 as well. All right, gang, short one tonight. So thank you for hanging out. Sorry if we had any technical difficulties heading out to you, but as you can see, we are on the road right now. We are doing some tuning, coming to you live whenever we can. The next wants to know, so we're going to continue using the 93 then? Yeah. So let me do the what's next scenario here. So tomorrow. We are. Do I sound super Canadian when I say tomorrow? Tomorrow we are going and doing some bolt-on engine modifications. We actually started tonight on the header and exhaust install. We're installing a set of stainless works headers. We're getting rid of the catalytic converters. We are going to an open exhaust back to the probably going to stick with the stock mufflers because we also found out today that they are very, very good. And they are very, very light. We'll get more into that in a future show. But yeah, we're going to open the exhaust up a little bit. We're adding a fast 92 millimeter intake manifold, and might go to some different injectors. We have some Deechworks injectors here that might be part of this phase as well. But we're starting to modify the engine a little bit. So my base tune, when we go back in there with HP tuners, probably going to stick with the 93 because I have an easy, consistent source for it 2 miles from my house, and I know that I'm going to be able to make, you know, as much power as I can with anything else with that 93. So also still have a bunch of the 100 sitting around, so we're probably going to see if, after we throw a few modifications at it, if there's a little bit more available there by running the 100 octane once we modify it a little bit. Now, when we get into stuff like E85, bigger question altogether. Maybe that is down the road, but that's an entire show on its own. You know, sitting here in this beautiful Airbnb here in Enterprise, Alabama. Not something I can really answer tonight, but definitely something I want to answer down the road. So Jonathan asks, hypothetically speaking, would it be prudent to run 93 with a little 100 for engine protection? Somebody smarter than me could probably offer that, give you a better answer on that. But based on what we saw today with this motor, there's not really much of a protection factor, because even with the 91, we never saw a single instance of knock sensor intervention. So, you know, I don't know what extra protection you're looking for there. If you have an unmodified motor, I might trust a consistent source of 93 over 93 and a little bit of 100. You don't really always know how much a little bit is. You hopefully are using proper storage techniques on that 100. But until you are heavily modifying the motor, changing compression ratios, you know, changing stuff like cam timing and duration, and or turbocharging, I don't know that there's much to be gained by going to that higher octane fuels. Let's see. Oh yeah, so Nick says a very similar exhaust setup to what he has. He has the high flow cats in the X pipe. I love the sound of an X pipe. So, to tell you a little story. Back in the day, this is not my first Corvette. I had a 1999 fixed roof coupe that we bolted an exhaust on many years ago, and Corvettes have an H pipe from the factory. The crossover for the H pipe, we actually had to cut it out to get the new exhaust in, or we didn't have to cut it out, but we were curious after we took it off to see, you know, how well the tube had been blended to the you know, how well the crossover tube had been blended to the primary tubes. And this is America's sports car, and I would have thought that, you know, they took a full round cut and they welded those tubes there. Nah, man, they stick that crossover tube on the primary tube, and then they just blast a hole with the welder in that primary tube. So you got this like 2.5 inch crossover tube for the H pipe with like a dime size hole in the middle of it in the pipe. So the stock Corvette crossover H pipe, there is not much crossover going on there, and it's certainly not a managed flow crossover. It's just a little bit of equalization, but not really much at all. So I'm not going to be surprised to see great gains coming from the midsection there. And actually, if you can run an X pipe of some sort, even if you have to run stock manifolds, probably huge gains to be had there. I think we got with the X pipe on my old Vet, I want to say it was like 13 horsepower by going from the stock H pipe to a still maintaining the stock cat location, and then crossing over with an X pipe behind that. It's like 13 horsepower, just bolted on. So that was pretty cool. Let's see. Get through some more of these questions. So Mike wants to know, any plans to have the oil tested, then retest annually? Yeah. So if you tuned in a couple weeks ago when Lake Speed Jr. was here, talked a lot about oil testing. I definitely next time I drain the oil, I'm going to be draining some into a Speed Diagnostics oil thingy, oil catch can, and sending that out for regular inspection. And even if we end up putting a crate motor in the car or something, I'd still like to know, after 97,000 miles, this engine certainly feels really strong. I know it had a lot of track miles even before we had it, but the thing still feels like $1 million. So really curious to see just what's going on inside that motor. And for $60, can't really go wrong there. So Steve wants to know, based on your testing, if you were driving this 93 car at Lincoln, would you fill with 91 or try and mix the Harley dealership's 95? That's a great question. So let me let you know what Steve's talking about there. If you go to the Solo Nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska, the availability of 93 octane fuel is not great out there. I think there might only be like 1 or 2 stations in Lincoln that even have 93. It's mostly 91 out there. Well, everybody from the East Coast and Texas and in the South is used to running 93, and they go out there and there's just 91. But right around the corner from the championship site is this Harley dealership that has a bunch of high octane fuels. They have like 95. They have I think it's 98. Is it 98 or 100? But they definitely have 95. And then I'm pretty sure they have 100. So Steve's asking, so since we're setting this car up, we're usually running 93. When I go out there, am I going to run their 91 or mix 91 and 95 for 93? Oh boy. My logical answer is, especially after seeing the 91 numbers from today, is I'm just probably going to buy the 91 and put it in there. My emotional answer, especially if I'm 0.04 of a second off of a trophy position, or I'm doing well, or I'm trying to find excuses for driving poorly, is I'm going to buy the 100 octane and put some paint thinner in there and get any advantage that I can, even though I kind of know now that it is not really a mathematical advantage. I'm not above telling you that I believe that there is a huge psychological component to our sport, and sometimes you can trick yourself into believing that you have an advantage. And in a sport timed to the 1,000th of a second, if that gives you just a little bit more of a psychological edge, if it gives you just that much more confidence, and that could make the difference between a 51.784 run and a 51.793 run, that at that elite level, that could make a difference in the standings. Man, whatever makes you feel better, whatever gets you into your bed comfortably that night and puts you away happy and lets you get out there the next day and compete. So yes, I will probably do whatever I feel keeps me the most consistent with how the car has been running all year, which is some sort of 93. So maybe I'll take some, take enough out with me to run on. But I will try and as match what I feel was as close to I was driving it all year. So there's your answer there. And yeah, see, this said the same thing. So after seeing the dyno chart, we're testing this thing today, and it's like every time these charts will come back, it's like, dude, where's the horsepower? Where like, does this not make a difference? And I'm a huge fan of Sunoco's fuels. Like I wanted there to be a difference. I wanted it to be significant enough where it's like, yes, there are magic answers, but on this car on this day, there is basically a hard cap that is delivered to you by the by those timing numbers, and that's kind of what you get. And even as we saw today with some tuning, you run into a bit of a hard cap just based on the architecture of the motor, which tells you a little bit that is a fairly well developed motor from the factory. You know, Chevy did their homework on that, obviously, put together a good product, and it's kind of maxed out. So now we're going to throw some parts at it and see how that changes things. But yeah, that's what we know. Yeah, Steve's driving a Boxster 1,400 miles, so there's not much space for fuel. So yeah, man, go by and it's fun. You know, you go by that Harley dealership. It's become a ritual for the folks that go to the solo championships out there. You go by that Harley dealership, maybe you see somebody else, maybe you see somebody in your class, and you kind of nod and smile at each other like, yeah, we're juicing it up a little bit here, and that's part of the game. I mean, it's not just autocross, especially where there's so much chaos that you're trying to distill into a 60-second run. You know, there's any other advantage you can get. I mean, if you got to call movie phone before every run and get, find out what time Howard the Duck is playing at a theater in Des Moines somewhere, and that you had a winning run after you did that one time. Man, do that. Do whatever psychological advantage you can give yourself. Take it, because there ain't much other advantage that's going to be given you. So that's what I have to say about that. All right, so here's what's going to happen for the rest of this week. I've rambled enough. We are going to start throwing out parts at the car tomorrow. I will try and do another quick live update tomorrow night if we get things back together and get the car back on the dyno, or maybe just even to go over some of the stuff we've installed and give you some tips on maybe how to put long tube headers on a Corvette, or how to install an intake manifold, that kind of stuff. If not, maybe I'll pop on Friday once we actually do get some dyno testing done and let you guys know how everything went. But we'll definitely keep you up to date. And then I'm trying to make an autocross on Sunday on the way back home with my friends at Dixie Region SCCA. So we'll see how that goes. But definitely want to come out of here with more horsepower than we came in with. And of course, we're on a Mustang dyno, so we are fighting the inherent stinginess of the dyno. But it's a very consistent dyno, and this is actually the last place we came and tuned the Mustang. So we're hoping to leave here with more horsepower than the Mustang had, more horsepower and torque, and that's gonna be hard to do because that car had variable cam timing. So we'll see. We'll see where we end up. All right, folks. We gotta get out of here. Before we do, though, please spare some thoughts for our friends down here in the lower left. Our friends at CRC Industries. Check them out online, crcindustries.com. You know the drill by now. Even better, check them out in a store near you, whether it's a big box hardware store, whether it's your local auto parts store, whether it's Harbor Freight or Walmart, any of those places. You're grabbing that CRC stuff, getting a great product, also giving a little bit back to the automotive community because they support all these events that we love. They are advertisers in Grassroots Motorsports. They're also supporters of IMSA and Pirelli World Challenge, whatever it's called this year, and the $2,000 challenge. Great events like that. So please do check out. Go buy a can of brake clean, buy a can of carb cleaner or throttle body cleaner, or just some silicone spray, and make your doors all stop squeaking. Also, check out our friends at Coney Shocks, coney-na.com. Going to have some discount codes, some tech tips for you from Coney coming up real soon, hopefully by next week. And also our friends at Autobooks, Aerobooks out in Burbank, California. The holiday season may be over, but it's never too late to buy yourself a great book, or for somebody you love. Autobooks-aerobooks.com. If you can make it out there in person, it's worth it. They have great stuff going on there, live events, cruise-ins, cars and coffees, author signings. If not, autobooks-aerobooks.com on the web have access to their entire selection. Next week, we've got Jimmy Day from Optima Search for the Ultimate Streetcar will be in the studio. We'll have an Optima Camaro there hanging out with us as we get into the Optima season. Give you a little bit of preview of what's going on there and show you how awesome some of the cars are that are running in that series. And also talk about the other series that Jimmy puts on, the Drive Auto X series. His FM3 company does a lot of cool stuff. If you haven't had a chance to run one of their events, I highly recommend it. That will be next week, March 6th. But I'll probably be seeing you before then with some Corvette updates. All right, that is it. Yes, Steve, thank you for... oh, yes, Steve's all about the electronics cleaner. Here's what's special about the CRC electronics cleaner. The CRC will never tell you this, but I will. In fact, CRC will tell you not to do this, but I got no problem telling you this. CRC electronics cleaner is the greatest decal remover you will ever use. It flashes off super fast. It's super mild on paint, but if you got like decal jizz all over your car, great for taking that stuff off, and it doesn't hurt the paint underneath, but it actually takes that adhesive off really, really well. So that's a tip that you will not get from CRC for liability reasons, but you will get from me because I love you. All right, gang, that is it. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thanks to Wayne at Very Cool Parts here in Enterprise. He helps out with a lot of our project cars. Great guy, great mechanic, cool dude, and he's actually getting his pilot's license. So he is out flying around tonight at night and enjoying himself. So I hope he's not watching. I hope he's actually watching the instruments right now. And that is it. Sorry that Katie had trouble back there, so she couldn't post all the links. But you guys know the score. You're cool. All right, that is it, guys. We'll see you again next week. I'm JG Pastor Jack. This is Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries from our remote studios in Enterprise, Alabama this week. I will see you again soon. Good night, everybody.